Chapter 1460. Gu Mingming thought about it. Perhaps it would be like how Sun Wukong obtained the ocean-stabilizing needle. After Gu Mingming obtained the love of the sky, the Moda Mountains would also shake? But luckily all the birds living here were birds, so they should not be buried alive. Her father also said that after she obtained the love of the sky, she would become the owner of the birds and all the birds would follow by her side. With that thought, Gu Mingming discussed with Gregory. My father, who is the mighty beast deity, he told me that after I obtain the love of the sky, the birds will recognize me as their owner and follow by my side. So I was thinking, how about we bring the birds from the Moda Mountains to settle down in St. Nazaire? Although Sauter's territory is bigger, but to be honest, there are already the Wolf clan, the Fox clan and the 16 tribes there. The situation is extremely chaotic. If you birds who have been living in seclusion for so many years, join in, you might just become cannon fodder. It's better for you to follow me back to St. Nazaire. I always feel that the people from St. Nazaire are the easiest to get along with. This keyword was enough to convince Gregory to do anything. Nodding with a smile, Gregory said, You are the head of the household, I will naturally listen to you. Gu Mingming did not say anything that would hurt their relationship. 7 days, 7 days. Gu Mingming leaned into Gregory's arms and gradually fell asleep. When she opened her eyes again, it was already the next morning. Gregory was roasting a wild rabbit. He had flown out of the Moda Mountains to look for Oriton last night. At the same time he had also brought back other prey, but he had thrown them to Elvis and the rest along the way. He only brought back 2 rabbits for Gu Mingming to eat. After Gu Mingming washed up with water from an ice cup, she hopped over to sit beside Gregory. Resting her chin on her hands, she looked at Gregory who was roasting the rabbit and smiled. You learn really fast. You are as talented as Leah in cooking. But Elvis can't do it, he and Snake are both kitchen killers, any fresh ingredients can be made into dark cuisine. Snake once roasted meat for me and I almost died from it. Hearing Gu Mingming's incessant chatter, Gregory suddenly smiled. Gu Mingming rarely saw Gregory smile. Most of the time he had a stern face like a teacher. Even if he smiled, it was just a slight twitch of his lips. Therefore this smile was rare. What are you laughing at? Gu Mingming also laughed, her eyes filled with curiosity. Gregory looked back at Gu Mingming. I'm laughing at how noisy you are. Gu Mingming wrinkled her nose and said, Are you praising me? Why doesn't it sound like it? If you think I'm too noisy, then I'll speak less. Gregory shook his head and said, No, you quarrel very well. Gu Mingming did not understand what Gregory was thinking. Gregory tore off a leg from the roasted rabbit and handed it to Gu Mingming for her to eat first. Then he placed the water back on the fire and said, In the past, there was only the sound of the wind blowing and snow falling on the Moda Mountains. I'm used to this kind of silence and never felt that it was inappropriate. I even thought that I liked this kind of silence. But Chapter 1461. You like crowds? Then the next time I bring you back to St. Nazaire, when the 16 valued members gather together, damn, that scene is comparable to a large-scale market. Gu Mingming chuckled. Gregory nodded with a smile and said, Okay. He did not tell Gu Mingming that he was actually used to being quiet, but he felt good when she was noisy. He did not like noises other than hers. After breakfast, Gregory gave Gu Mingming 10 xueling fruits that he had just plucked today. Eating barbecued meat early in the morning was indeed too oily for Gu Mingming, so eating a few fruits was just nice to clear her mouth. The next time you pluck fruits, bring me along. I want to admire the scenery of the Moda Mountains. Gu Mingming said as she ate. Gregory thought for a moment, then shook his head in rejection, saying, The wind outside is too strong, you will damage the house. Seeing her frown, his heart ached a little, so he added, 6 days later, won't the Moda Mountains have half a day without wind or snow? You can admire the scenery then. Hearing Gregory's words, Gu Mingming became even more excited about what would happen 6 days later. After obtaining the love of the sky, she could go home and give birth to little foxes. Her family would become more and more lively. Huda and his brothers were growing too fast and could no longer play with her. She had to hurry and give birth to a nest of cute buns. Feeling happy, Gu Mingming could not help but start humming. That tuneless song made Gregory mesmerized. When Gu Mingming realized that Gregory was staring at her in a daze, half a day had already passed. Hey, come back to your senses. Gu Mingming stretched out 5 fingers and waved them in front of Gregory. Only then did Gregory return to his senses. He cleared his throat awkwardly and said, I didn't expect you to know how to sing. Gu Mingming's eyes brightened and she looked at Gregory saying, Oh yes, I heard from Leah that the males from your bird tribe can also sing. Gregory nodded and said, it's just not as good as yours. Gu Mingming hugged her knees and looked at Gregory. Sing one for me. Gregory did not hesitate and nodded his head. He hugged Gu Mingming in his arms and whispered a tune into her ear. It was a light and deep melody, as if he was playing a famous piece on an ancient European piano. It was not surging and passionate, but every note touched her heart. He did not utter a single word throughout and only hummed softly, but Gu Mingming was intoxicated. He embraced her and swayed gently to the rhythm as if they were dancing together. After humming the song, Gu Mingming could not stop herself and looked at Gregory with an intoxicated gaze. Grace was drunk and lost in her eyes. The corners of his lips curled up unconsciously. At that moment she was the only one in his eyes. You like it? Grace whispered. Gu Mingming nodded her head without hesitation. Then she mimicked Gregory's tone and hummed a few lines, but to no avail. She could not hum out the kind of charm he had. There was not a single word, but it was filled with deep emotions. She could never learn it. Courtesy demands reciprocity. I will sing a song for you too, Gu Mingming said with a smile. Chapter 1462. Gu Mingming thought for a while and sang, Just Happened to Meet You. The only races in the beast world who could sing were the females of the mermaids and males of the birds, but the songs they could sing had no lyrics. So, although Gu Mingming's singing was different from Gregory's, it was rare. Moreover, the cave formed a unique echo chamber, adding to the quality of the singing. Gregory was smiling the entire time, smiling especially blissfully. There was no other reason other than there was only him and Gu Mingming here. Every single note that Gu Mingming sang was for him. In the bird tribe, singing was a form of courtship. Of course, he knew that Gu Mingming was not clear, but it was enough for him to deceive himself into believing that this was Gu Mingming's confession to him. Just like that, it was enough. Everything was worth it. On the 5th day, Gu Mingming's altitude sickness had completely recovered. Having regained her energy, she was eager to try again. She started drawing on the walls of the cave out of boredom. At the start, she drew some messy, secret martial arts books, which were actually just matchstick men fighting without any style. Then, she suggested drawing a portrait for Gregory, to which Gregory was naturally willing to cooperate. So, Gu Mingming tried to find light and made Gregory change his style. Finally, she posed him sitting sideways at the entrance of the cave, gazing into the distance with an unfathomable look. But, Gu Mingming was not a child who had learned how to draw. She tried her best and finally drew Gregory into crayon Xianxia. Done? Gregory stood up and walked over when he saw Gu Mingming keeping her pen. Don't move. Gu Mingming waved her hand and rejected him. Hearing that, Gregory really stopped moving. He smiled and asked, What's the matter? Gu Mingming used her body to block the drawing tightly and said awkwardly, That? I didn't finish it. Why don't we not look at it? Gregory chuckled and said, It's fine no matter how you draw it. With that, Gregory took another 2 steps forward and was already in front of Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming's back was pressed against the wall, blocking that crayon Xianxia has something on his mind, drawing completely. She raised her head and the tip of her nose was pressed against Gregory's chest muscles. Gregory supported himself against the wall with one hand and placed the other on Gu Mingming's shoulder. He looked down from the back of her neck, trying to find out what was going on. He didn't mean to do it. But in modern times this position was called wall drumming. Gu Mingming blushed. She felt that her heart might not be able to take it if this went on, so she admitted defeat and said, Then step back, I'll talk to you. Gregory took a step back and smiled at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming swallowed her saliva and said, Look, you can look. But you have to promise me that you can't get angry when you see it. We're still friends. Gregory sighed helplessly and said, I'm your guardian beast, not your friend. I just can't get angry. Gu Mingming's main point was not her identity, all right? Gregory pondered for a while and said, What if I get angry? Do you know how to coax me? I will. After all, I'm in the wrong. Before she could finish her sentence, Gregory laughed and said, Then I'll get angry. Getting angry before even looking at it? Gu Mingming looked at Gregory with her eyes wide open. Gregory tapped Gu Mingming's wrinkled nose and said, I want to be coaxed by you once, just once will do. Don't worry, as long as you coax me, I won't be angry anymore and I'll listen to everything you say. How about that? Aside from the topic, who was so nice? He gave Susu 5 tickets at the beginning of the month. Thank you, big baby. Chapter 1463. Really? Gu Mingming was doubtful. Gregory smiled and nodded, promising, I promise you with the pride of the bird's tribe, if I go back on my words, let me break my wings and be blind, never to fly again. Gu Mingming covered Gregory's mouth, laughing awkwardly. Don't swear so recklessly, it's not worth it. I'll just show you, spit a mouthful of saliva and say that the oath you made just now doesn't count. Gregory didn't know that ever since snakes cut open his chest and take out his gallbladder became a maxim, Gu Mingming had been traumatized by oaths. Every time she heard someone say such a vicious oath, she would feel terrible, really terrible. Gregory only knew that Gu Mingming's soft and fragrant hand had automatically pressed against his face, covering his mouth, her exquisite little face looking at him anxiously, as if he was an important person. She was worried for him? Afraid that his oath would come true. But was she a fool? He was not angry at her at all, even if she had drawn him as a green-faced, fanged monster. As long as it was drawn by her, he would find it pleasing to the eye. Actually, he did not even need to coax her, he would not blame her at all. He only wanted to deceive her to coax him once. How could the vow come true? Pulling her little hand away from his mouth, Gregory looked back at her with a gentle gaze, using his mellow voice to whisper, "The vulture tribe has never gone back on their words. But you still said you wouldn't like me back then and told me to give up early. Isn't it a slap in the face now? I don't care, spit a mouthful of saliva and say it again." Other than Elvis and Leah, Gu Mingming rarely said such willful words to others, and it was not common for her to be so stubborn for no reason. She did not know why, but she felt that Gregory's oath made her extremely uneasy. Break his wings and be blind? Damn, how similar was it to Snake's act of cutting open his chest and taking out his gallbladder? She could no longer bear the burden of a human life on her shoulders, she would rather bear the title of a strange auntie, a big scumbag, and drag Gregory along with her family of 3 to lead a good life. As long as she could live safely, it was fine. Gregory looked at Gu Mingming with a gaze full of joy, not the slightest bit angry that she had exposed his shortcomings. On the contrary, he was extremely happy. She was acting shamelessly, wasn't she? That dignified Gu Mingming, who always put on the airs of a messenger of the beast deity, always smiled gently to her friends and was cold and contemptuous to her enemies, was acting shamelessly like a child in front of him, right? He had only seen this adorable look of hers when she was in Leah and Elvis's arms. Now she was willing to throw a tantrum in front of him, right? A smile spread across his lips and eyes. Gregory nodded with an indulgent and doting smile and said, "All right, it's up to you. Then hurry up and spit." Gu Mingming straightened her neck and demanded, "Bah." Gregory spat to the side and said, "What I said just now doesn't count, please pretend you didn't hear it." Gu Mingming cleared her throat, looked up at the sky and said, "Father, watch your television series properly. Just treat that thing just now as a small advertisement, cut it and don't broadcast it. You didn't see anything and you didn't hear anything. Do you understand?" Gregory did not understand what Gu Mingming was saying and only felt that she was extremely cute. Chapter 1464. Gu Mingming was afraid that if she did not get up, Gregory would say things like broken wings and blind eyes again, so she did not try to hide anymore and slowly moved to the side. That crayon Xianxia has something on his mind picture appeared in front of Gregory. Gu Mingming carefully observed Gregory's expression. Seeing that he was still smiling and did not look unhappy, she finally heaved a sigh of relief. How should she put it? The tolerance of males in the beast world towards females was as wide as the Pacific Ocean. Gregory tilted his head to look at Gu Mingming and said, "Can I be angry now?" Gu Mingming was at a loss and said, "Is it really ugly?" Gregory shook his head and said, "It's not ugly, it's very cute. But I want you to coax me, so can I be angry now?" Was there a need for approval to be angry? If she said not to be angry, would he not be angry? Gu Mingming felt a little helpless. She had almost forgotten how lowly the males in the beast world were. Before she mated with Elvis and Leah, the two of them were also like Gregory. They always acted according to her wishes and were careful in everything. After mating, they were always worried that she would abandon them. Especially Elvis, he was so shocked when she went into the water to touch a lotus root. It was only after experiencing so many things that they believed that she loved them and would not abandon them that they gradually became bolder. While spoiling her, they were also controlling her. She was not afraid of him. Until now, Gu Mingming had forgotten that in the beast world, males had to be so careful in front of females they liked, as if they were walking on thin ice. Didn't he just want her to act coquettishly and coax him? What was so difficult about it? Gu Mingming took a step forward and wrapped her arms around Gregory's arm, shaking it left and right. She looked up at Gregory with her big watery eyes and said with a trembling voice, don't be angry." Gregory's iron bones were melted by Gu Mingming's "Mm." A suspicious pink color crept up the tip of his ears and Gregory coughed guiltily. He looked to the side and did not dare to look at Gu Mingming again. He was the one who expected her to act coquettishly, but she really did it and he did not dare to look at her. His heart was beating so hard that it felt like it was going to burst out of his chest. He wanted to withdraw his hand from her arm, but he couldn't bear to part with that gentleness. He could only nod woodenly and said, I'm not angry. After Gu Mingming realized that Gregory got shy easily, she liked to tease him more and more. Whenever he blushed and could not do anything to her, she would laugh heartily. There were still 4 days until the wind stopped. The sound of birds chirping came from outside the cave. Gregory frowned and replied, "Got it? You guys go first, I'll be there soon." Gu Mingming could not understand the chirping of birds, but seeing that Gregory did not look too good, she asked, "What's wrong? Did something happen?" For the past 3 days, Gregory had gotten used to fetching prey from Oriton every morning and helping Gu Mingming pluck xueling fruits on the way back. Then he would roast the fruits to warm himself up and hug her for the entire day, not wanting to let go. At this moment he was feeding Gu Mingming xueling fruits and was not in a good mood after being interrupted. I don't want to let her go, not even for a second. But he was the tribe leader after all. He had to handle all the matters on Moda Mountains. Frowning, Gregory nodded and said, "Wait for me in the cave, I'll be back soon." He stared at Gu Mingming with a pair of sharp eyes, his lips pressed into a straight line. He did not say a single word, but his face was full of accusation. This expression, that sounds familiar. Gu Mingming was stunned for 2 seconds and immediately understood that Gregory thought she was going to jump off the cliff by sitting at the cave entrance. Elvis was also like this the last time she went into the water to touch him. "I'm sitting there to wait for you to come back, not to jump off the cliff." Gu Mingming looked straight into Gregory's eyes and spoke first. Chapter 1466. "You walked the entire day, I would have jumped long ago if I wanted to." Gu Mingming pushed Gregory and said, "Can you sit up first? It's quite heavy, I can't breathe with you pressing down on me like that." Only then did Gregory realize that his position with Gu Mingming was not appropriate. Although this position had appeared many times in his dreams, but he did not have the status to press down on her like that. Nodding his head, Gregory still stood up and carried Gu Mingming up from the ground into his arms. His back was facing the cave entrance and his face was facing Gu Mingming, as if he was guarding against her suddenly rushing out. Gu Mingming shook her head helplessly and said, "I already said a few times, the last time I jumped off the cliff I was not really seeking death, I only jumped because I was sure that you would catch me. This time I came on my own accord, we are going to get the love of the sky in 4 days, why would I jump off the cliff for no reason? I don't have a motive, right?" Thinking about it, Gregory felt that it made sense. He sighed and said, "Sorry, I was too nervous." Gu Mingming smiled and said, "It's normal, I am used to it. Elvis is the same too, he always feels that I am going to abandon him, any dangerous move will successfully make him explode." Patting Gregory's shoulder, Gu Mingming smiled and said, "But you have to believe me, I don't have any masochistic tendencies, seeking death is really not my hobby." Gregory was unwilling to admit that the scene of her jumping off the cliff with his own eyes had already left a shadow in his heart. The sky was originally where he was most at ease, but once he saw her near the cave entrance, every factor in his body would clamor for unease. He did not like himself who was so paranoid, but he could not help but like her, who made him become like this. Sighing silently, Gregory pulled Gu Mingming back into his arms and said, I know. He knew everything but he could not help but worry. Just like someone once said, we all understand the logic but we still cannot live this life well. It's very windy at the peak, it's too dangerous for you to sit there. Gregory tried his best to find a lame excuse. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, there is no scale here but I know I have gained a lot of weight. When I first came to the beast world I weighed around 120 kilograms. Previously I took the clothes that Elvis had made for me when I had just transmigrated to this world and measured them. The measurements were about the same but my muscle ratio was obviously higher than before. Therefore, in the case of the same body shape the weight must have increased. Back then, a Category 18 typhoon could do nothing to me. Now, it can't do anything to me. Gu Mingming smiled like Dongfang Booby, extremely exaggerated. Because of her words, Gregory also laughed. He couldn't explain why but seeing her laugh made his mood better. Seeing her like this, he finally felt at ease and believed that he had been worrying for nothing. Have you settled the matters in your tribe? Gu Mingming directly changed the topic of failed cliff jumping, and asked about another matter. Gregory shook his head, his eyebrows unconsciously knitting together. Clearly the matter seemed to be quite troublesome. Chapter 1467. The bird's tribe was more devoted to the beast deity than the other tribes. So to Gregory, Gu Mingming's words sounded a little rebellious and heinous. But the beast deity was still not as important as his own female, so Gregory did not reprimand Gu Mingming. He shook his head and said, I don't have to ask the beast deity about this, but I might have to ask you. Meh. Gu Mingming pointed at her own nose and asked, Why? Are the others from the bird's tribe objecting to me taking the love of the sky? Gregory shook his head and said, No, it has nothing to do with the love of the sky. Then what is it? Gu Mingming heaved a sigh of relief. As long as it did not interfere with her taking the love of the sky, everything else was fine. Gregory was a little hesitant and said as if it was not a good time to speak, Do you still remember the female you sent to the Moda Mountains previously? Gu Mingming thought for a moment and said, Miranda? Gregory nodded and said, She is pregnant. Gu Mingming blinked and smiled awkwardly saying, Isn't it a good thing for a female to be pregnant? Why do you look unhappy as if you have been cuckolded? Gregory did not know what cuckolded meant and did not mind. He just explained, She is not pregnant with a bird's child. Gu Mingming was taken aback. It was impossible for land beasts to come up to the Moda Mountains. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, Elvis and Leah would not have allowed Gregory to bring her away without even trying. Land beasts could not come up and Miranda could not get out. Now that he said she was not pregnant with a bird's child, the only explanation was, she was pregnant before winter? Then, that time during the mass estrus? Damn. Gu Mingming held her forehead and looked at Gregory saying, So? Gregory said, There have never been land beasts born on the Moda Mountains. Land beasts are unable to adapt to the climate on the Moda Mountains. Moreover, there are not enough resources here to support a young female. But Miranda has already mated with 9 male birds. Sending her back to land now is equivalent to turning these 9 birds into stray beasts. Birds are the most loyal to the beast deity. No matter what, they will never accept becoming stray beasts and delay the pride of the birds. So, if Miranda is sent away, they will definitely crash their heads against the Moda Mountains and die to prove their loyalty, in order to protect the pride of the birds. Gu Mingming facepalmed. Why are you so stubborn? Can't you just go down the mountain with Miranda? Gregory shook his head, his gaze determined. The birds will not leave the Moda Mountains. But didn't you leave? Gu Mingming said, You have been living with us at the foot of the mountain for a while. You know, even if the birds descended the mountain, the sky did not collapse. Gregory sighed, shifted his gaze to the side and said, Actually, Gu Mingming tilted her head, vaguely feeling that something was wrong. Gregory sighed and said, I did not want to tell you so early, but I can't hide it from you forever. Raising his head again, Gregory's gaze carried a tinge of pain. He said, I will not follow you to St. Nazaire. After you retrieve the love of the sky, I will send you down the mountain and leave the Moda Mountains. And I will return. Chapter 1468. I am also your guardian beast here. As long as you are in danger, I will rush over to protect you immediately. But at the same time I am also the leader of the bird's tribe. I have responsibilities and obligations that I cannot shirk from. Unless the Moda Mountains disappear, I will have to guard this place forever. Gregory's hand involuntarily caressed Gu Mingming's face. If you are willing, you can take some time out to visit me every year. There is no shortage of water during the dry season. You can come over during the dry season to avoid the summer heat. We can stay in the cave at the border that you stayed in previously. It's much lower than here so you won't have altitude sickness. I can also fly up with Elvis and Leah. Gu Mingming fell silent. She did not know why, but she just felt uncomfortable. She looked at Gregory dejectedly and asked, Gregory, must you turn me into such a scumbag, huh? Gregory looked at Gu Mingming in confusion. His heart ached for her frowning sad look. Gu Mingming said, I took your status but refused to mate with you. I am in the wrong and I owe you. But you have to give me a chance to make it up to you, right? I've already thought it through. I will treat you like family. In the future, as long as I, Gu Mingming, have a bite to eat, I will not let you starve. But what about you? You actually intend to stay alone on the Moda Mountains. I have only sat here for half a day today and I already feel so lonely. You want me to leave you here for half a year and then come over to accompany you for 2 to 3 months during the dry season? What should I do for the rest of the time? Every day, I will think that Gregory must be sitting alone at the entrance of the cave, gazing into the distance. He must be waiting for me, right? Since I cannot stay on the Moda Mountains to accompany him, why did I agree to let him be my guardian beast in the first place? Gu Mingming looked up. Her eyes were misty as she pleaded softly, I cannot stand it. I will be tortured to death by guilt. Gregory, let's leave together after we get the love of the sky. Just like what we have been doing these few days, living together with Elvis and Leah, alright? I will treat you well, really. Gregory gently touched the feather earring on Gu Mingming's right ear. He smiled and said, silly girl. Gu Mingming grabbed onto Gregory's arm and begged, please? Gregory shook his head slightly, but his lips were still curled up. I asked you to come over to Moda Mountains during the dry season to avoid the heat, but I didn't say that I won't look for you when you don't come up. I also regret that I can't be by your side every day, but I have obligations and responsibilities that I must fulfill. Fortunately, I am the clan leader, so I have the privilege to go down the mountain. Therefore, as long as there are no major events in the clan, I will definitely go down the mountain to find you when I have the time. He would not foolishly sit at the entrance of the cave and wait foolishly. Have you forgotten? I've told you before, you don't have to stand there and wait for me. No matter how much distance there is between us, I'll cross it. I'll always be by your side. Really? Gu Mingming was skeptical. Gregory smiled and asked, do I have to swear? Gu Mingming shook her head and said, no, I will believe you. Don't swear, I have a phobia about swearing. Gregory nodded with a smile and said, then I won't swear. Gu Mingming had completely given up on trying to regain her dignity. Miranda was obviously shocked when she saw Gu Mingming. She stood there in a daze and did not dare to move until she saw Gu Mingming turn around to look at her. She then retreated backwards as if she had seen a ghost. She shook her head and said with a trembling voice, I am very obedient, I have always been in Moda Mountains and have never left. Please let me go, I will never dare to pester Aya again. I did not go out. I did not. Chapter 1470. Glancing at the 9 males surrounding Miranda, Gu Mingming did not need to guess to know who they were. Even if the Moda Mountains did not exit the beast world, those who could enter a cave with a female so openly must be partners. Didn't they see Gregory automatically retreating to a protruding rock outside the cave after sending Gu Mingming off? Gu Mingming patted her and said, obedient? Why do I feel that you are not very obedient? Gu Mingming did not stand on ceremony and directly sat beside Miranda. She gently touched Miranda's stomach with her little hand, as if she was caressing it. Miranda was so frightened that her entire body was trembling. Her eyes were filled with tears as she looked at her partner pitifully. She seemed to be pleading for help as she shouted, Lucas? Lucas? After all, she was his female and he treated her like a precious treasure. Seeing how scared she was, Lucas' heart ached even more. He took a step forward and said, Great messenger, Miranda is timid and she is pregnant now you? Gu Mingming turned back and smiled at Lucas, asking, What did I do? I just came over to see her after knowing she is pregnant. But Lucas was a bird after all and had an almost blind loyalty to the beast deity. Gu Mingming was the messenger of the beast deity, he naturally had to bow down to her. And Gu Mingming really did not do anything overboard. She only touched Miranda's stomach. So even though Lucas' heart ached, he could not say anything else and could only look at Gu Mingming with a troubled expression. Gu Mingming did not care at all. Not only did she not retract her hand, she even crossed her legs and sat on the bed, facing Miranda. She said, You don't have to be afraid because it is useless to be afraid. If I really want to do something to you, even if all the males in this room join hands, they won't be able to stop me. These words were true enough. After all, unless there was a beast king among the 9 of them, even 9 5th-level beasts would not be Gu Mingming's match. Back then, I did not hand you over to Cole and sent you to the Moda Mountains because I wanted to save your life. If I wanted to harm you, I did not have to dirty my own hands. As long as I ignored you, Cole would naturally not let you off. Well, you still don't know? He is now the beast king of the fox tribe. At the mention of Cole, Miranda trembled even more violently. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes and lightly tapped on Miranda's tummy. This child is Cole's? Miranda's eyes were starting to lose focus. It was obvious that she had yet to recover from the previous news and was shocked by the news that Cole had become the Fox King. They were once love rivals and had played tricks in front of Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming knew that she was not a White Lotus bitch, but her pitiful state made it hard for others to harden their hearts and make things difficult for her. Putting aside her pestering Leah, Gu Mingming had actually gone overboard with regards to Miranda. That was why Gu Mingming had sent Miranda to Moda Mountains. Firstly, it was to prevent her from pestering Leah. Secondly, it was to protect her life. Now that she no longer pestered Leah, the conflict of interest between her and Gu Mingming would no longer exist. Gu Mingming still had some basic sympathy towards people who were not a threat. After all, even public buses knew to prepare seats for the elderly, the sick, the disabled and pregnant. Gu Mingming would never mistreat a pregnant woman. Chapter 1471. Moreover, even if he really came up, he would not be a match for your partners in the sky. Gu Mingming spoke slowly, trying her best to calm Miranda's emotions. Moreover, don't you still have me? Since I want to protect you, he will not be able to touch you. Miranda's eyes then slowly focused. She looked at Gu Mingming, then at Lucas. She called out in a sobbing tone, "Lucas? Yeah, I'm here." Lucas's heart ached terribly. He only dared to go to Miranda's side after getting Gu Mingming's permission. He hugged her in his arms. With Lucas hugging her, Miranda's emotions gradually calmed down. It was obvious that Miranda had become very sensitive and uneasy after being imprisoned without seeing the light of day. Lucas and the rest must have treated her extremely well for her to develop such a degree of reliance on them. Seeing that Miranda had gradually calmed down, Gu Mingming then continued to ask, "Is the child in your stomach his?" Gu Mingming avoided mentioning Cole's name, but she knew that Miranda would definitely understand. Miranda hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "What do you need me to do for you to let me off? As long as the child is born, I will kill him. In that case, can you let me stay on Moda Mountains with Lucas and the rest?" Gu Mingming frowned. She knew that females in the beast world were used to being selfish. Other than themselves, the lives of others were not worth much. But she thought that as a mother she should have the most basic maternal love. She knew that in Miranda's eyes she might be a demon that was scarier than Cole. But she thought that she would at least try to protect her child. She was more or less disappointed with the coldness of the beast world. "He wants this child, do you know that?" Gu Mingming's attitude also turned colder. Initially, Gu Mingming did not understand why Cole had asked Gregory to send him to Moda Mountains. Now that she thought about it, it was clear. One of the 7 treasures, the key of the Beast King. Cole could not wait for Gu Mingming to give birth to a child with the bloodline of the Beast King before snatching it away. So he wanted to give birth to one himself. He probably knew that Gu Mingming had sent Miranda to the Moda Mountains, so he couldn't wait to snatch her away. I know he wants to eat this child." Miranda nodded stiffly and said, Then after I give birth, I'll get Lucas to send the child to him. He won't come looking for me anymore, right?" Gu Mingming sighed and said, "You don't have to go through so much trouble. After you give birth, give the child to me. I will tell Cole that this child is in my hands. If he has the ability, let him snatch it from me." Miranda looked at Gu Mingming blankly. Gu Mingming did not want to explain so much and just said, "He snatched my son away, so I snatched him away too. It's very fair." "All right." Miranda did not hesitate to agree to Gu Mingming's request. Gu Mingming could not be bothered to talk nonsense with Miranda. She just glanced at Lucas and instructed, "Go to the stream at the edge of Moda Mountains to get the food for the delivery from a white tiger. After the child is born, send it to me." Lucas looked at Miranda, and when he saw her nod, he replied, "Okay." Gu Mingming did not stay any longer. She got Gregory to bring her back to their original cave. Digression. Today's update has ended. Chapter 1472. You really want to raise Miranda's child? After returning to the cave, Gregory asked hesitantly. Gu Mingming lowered her head and said, "I want to open the doors of time and space and need the key of the Beast King. Using someone else's child is better than using my own." Gu Mingming admitted that she was selfish. She wanted to kill Cole at the same time she opened the doors of time and space to completely eliminate the hidden danger that threatened Xianxuan's life. Using someone else's child to exchange for her own child was despicable, shameless and inhumane. But, as long as she could protect her child, she would not even bat an eyelid even if she had to wade through a wok of boiling oil, not to mention going to hell after death. The greatness of a mother's love was precisely because it was sufficiently selfish. Gu Mingming could have disguised her motives and said in a dignified manner that it was for Miranda's good. Without this child by Miranda's side, Cole would not have any reason to pester her anymore. She could also say in a saintly manner that she could not bear for this child to be abandoned so easily by Miranda, so she placed him by her side to raise him. But she did not. Perhaps this was Gu Mingming's last shred of dignity. "I am despicable and I admit it. After doing something that deserved to be spurned, there was no need to put on an aggrieved look. In this world, no one would put themselves in your shoes and think for you. So those sorrows should be left to cry at night when no one else was around. After crying, stand up strong and face all the blame. This was what a mother should do." Regarding the matter between Gu Mingming and Cole, as well as the matter regarding the doors of time and space, after confirming Gregory's identity, Leah and Elvis no longer avoided him when talking to Gu Mingming. Sometimes they would even specially explain to him, so Gregory had a rough idea of what was going on. Tightening his embrace around Gu Mingming, Gregory said in a low voice, "The weak are prey to the strong, survival of the fittest. This is the principle of the beast world. You did not do anything wrong, don't be sad." "I'm not sad." Gu Mingming straightened her neck and refused to admit defeat. Gregory placed his hands on Gu Mingming's shoulders and looked straight into her eyes. His gaze was not sharp, but as calm as spring water, yet it had the power to see through one's heart. "A bird's eyes are the sharpest. Your disguise can't fool me, there's no need to hide yourself in front of me. Although we are not partners, I am still your male. I will always stand on your side and think for you. As long as it's good for you, it's right to me." Gu Mingming pursed her lips and did not say anything. There was an emotion that was hard to describe. Before you do something, you already know that you will be despised by the whole world, and you are prepared to bear the consequences of being despised by others. So when the whole world is throwing rotten leaves at you, you can grit your teeth and tell yourself in your heart, "I don't regret it, everything I've endured is worth it." But at this moment, someone suddenly appeared in front of you, hugging you in a warm embrace and telling you in a soft voice, "Don't be afraid, I'm here and I believe in you." When this person appeared, the high walls in your heart would crumble, then your grievances and frailty would leak out. Gu Mingming wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and choked, "You might as well despise me, why must you make me so miserable? It's rare for me to make up my mind to be a bad woman." Chapter 1473. There were still 3 days before the wind would stop at Moda Mountains. Gu Mingming had been depressed for most of the night because of Miranda and the child in her womb. In the end, Gregory had to hum a song to coax her to sleep. This was the first time Gu Mingming had experienced such a way of sleeping. Perhaps her mother had coaxed her like this when she was young? But ever since her parents divorced at the age of 4, she, an orphan with both parents, had never received such treatment. Elvis and Leah treated her very well, but not being able to sing was not something that could be forced. After all, if the two of them were to howl for the entire night, it would be quite miserable and she would probably not be able to sleep. There was a tint of red in the sky and Gregory's eyes were tinged with warmth. Gu Mingming had slept in his arms for 3 consecutive nights. These 3 nights, he could not bear to close his eyes for even a minute, afraid that he would miss every breath she took and every faint smile she had in her dreams. Oh. Gu Mingming instinctively moved closer to the warmth and snuggled deeper into Gregory's arms. Gregory's large hands hugged Gu Mingming's back, hugging her even tighter. He liked her unconsciously moving closer and her defenseless sleeping face in his arms. Although it was a little despicable, Gregory still secretly kissed Gu Mingming's cheek. Humans should not do bad things. He kissed her without permission. Although it was just a light peck on her cheek, Gregory felt his heart pounding deafeningly. And the person in his arms seemed to be unhappy that his loud heartbeat was disturbing her sleep, so she frowned slightly and rubbed her little face against his chest. Only then did she continue to sleep at that relatively comfortable place. This small action shocked Gregory so much that he held his breath. It was not an overstatement to say that he was already thinking about what he should do if Gu Mingming abandoned him because of his secret kiss. Luckily, Gu Mingming's even and light breathing could be heard after a while. Only then did Gregory let out a long sigh of relief. He carried Gu Mingming to the entrance of the cave, wrapped her in a beast skin and hugged her tightly in his arms. Patting her little face lightly, he called out gently, "Wake up, I have a present for you." "Yeah." Gu Mingming replied in a daze, but her eyes were still closed. "There's really a present, wake up?" Gregory whispered into Gu Mingming's ear. He knew she had a temper when she got up, but he really wanted her to see at once. Groaning, Gu Mingming opened her eyes. Just as she was about to complain about Gregory disturbing her sleep, she was stunned by the sight before her. The orange-red morning sun slowly rose and the warm sunlight shone on the Mota Mountains, adding a layer of gentle warmth to the pure white snow. Tiny spots of light shone in the snow, like a vast expanse of fine golden sand. It was extremely beautiful. "The first ray of sunlight in the morning is for you." Gregory's gaze was fixated on Gu Mingming's little face. He did not miss her change from feeling wronged for not having enough sleep to astonishment. His smile was gentle and blissful. It was nice of her to like his gift. Her smile at this moment was blossoming because of him. "So beautiful." Gu Mingming could not help but exclaim. "Not as good as you," Gregory replied instinctively. Gregory spoke too softly and the wind at the entrance of the cave was too strong, so Gu Mingming did not hear what Gregory said. But even so, this was the first morning that Gu Mingming did not lose her temper after waking up naturally. Strangely, the first ray of sunlight in the morning brightened Gu Mingming's heart, as if all the dark clouds had been swept away. Aside from the topic, after hesitating for a long time, she still reminded her babies not to like Gregory too much. Chapter 1474. Are you in a good mood? Gregory asked tentatively. Gu Mingming nodded and stood up from Gregory's arms. She stretched lazily and walked into the cave. As she walked, she said, "In the past when I was working, I often had to wake up very early. That was because I had no other choice. Therefore at that time I had a wish. When I had money in the future, I would wake up naturally every day and never wake up early. In the end, I didn't have money but I had Elvis and Leah. The title of the messenger of the beast deity fulfilled my wish of sleeping as long as I wanted. I would throw a tantrum at whoever dared to wake me up." As Gu Mingming spoke, she had already sat by the side of the bonfire. She wrapped herself in a beast skin and sat by the fire to warm herself. Then she hugged her knees and swayed her body. She smiled sweetly as she recalled the past and continued, "Do you know? Elvis and Leia know I have a bad temper so they never wake me. And there was one time when a female in the tribe made a ruckus at my door early in the morning, disturbing my sleep. I angrily went out and beat her up. The two of them didn't beat the females, but they beat up all the males in the female's family until they were half dead. From then on, no one dared to disturb my sleep." Gregory had already walked to Gu Mingming's side. He added 4 to 5 ice cups into the pot and boiled it for Gu Mingming to wash and drink. Gu Mingming said as she watched, "But today is an exception, the sunrise is just too beautiful." The sun lit up the entire sky bit by bit. Every step was difficult, but who could stop daybreak? My father had always told me that what the previous messenger of the beast deity brought to the beast world was faith, while what I wanted to bring to the beast world was hope. But I didn't know what hope was. Could it be that eating, drinking and having fun with my partner every day was called hope? Can't be. Today my confusion seems to have suddenly cleared up. I'm not the sun and I don't have boundless radiance. However, my existence itself is hope. Gregory did not interrupt Gu Mingming. He liked to listen to her speak, anything was fine. To him, her voice was the most beautiful movement, the most beautiful melody. No matter how much she chattered, he listened to her every word very carefully. Even though the past had nothing to do with him, as long as it was related to her, he was interested. No matter what difficulties you encounter, no matter what pain you feel, even if you feel that you can't take it anymore and can't hold on any longer. At times like this they would think, it's okay, we still have the messenger of the beast deity. No matter how difficult it is, we have to hold on because she will definitely come to save us. The so-called sadness meant that even though it was difficult, it would eventually pass. Once we get through the most difficult times, everything will get better. Even if I didn't appear, they would still push the credit to me, saying that it was the messenger of the beast deity who gave them hope and allowed them to get through those hardships. Wasn't it a little shameless to say that? It seems like I'm overestimating myself. Gregory scooped some warm water from the pot for Gu Mingming to wash up. As he watched her rinse her mouth, he said, "Don't undervalue yourself." Chapter 1475. Gu Mingming was stunned for a moment before she burst out laughing. She could not be blamed for being smitten. It was really too weird, too funny and too mushy for Gregory to say such romantic words with a serious tone, as if he was reciting the mind-cleansing incantation. "You said that in your world there's a phrase called reciprocity?" Gregory ignored Gu Mingming's silly smile. Anyway, no matter what she did, she would always be cute in his eyes. Gu Mingming nodded as a reply to Gregory's question. Gregory lowered his eyelids and chuckled, "I feel that this phrase is very good, I like it very much." Gu Mingming looked at Gregory in confusion. Gregory felt a little awkward but still said, "I gave you a present that you like, shouldn't you return a present that makes me feel better?" Gu Mingming opened the beast's skin and said, "You saw it too, I don't have anything on me now so I can't take out a present. But I can remember it first, after we descend the mountain, I will also prepare a present for you, how about that?" Gregory shook his head and said, "I want it now. But I don't have anything now." Gu Mingming shrugged her shoulders helplessly. "You do," Gregory said with certainty. The corner of Gu Mingming's mouth twitched and she looked troubled. "Didn't we agree not to mate? Could this Gregory be? What do you want? Tell me first." Gu Mingming had already thought of herself as romantic once, and did not want to do it again, so she felt that it was better to clarify things first. Gregory's face was slightly red, and there was a suspicious shade of pink on his ears. Since I already have a status, shouldn't you give me something special? Seeing Gregory's bashful look, Gu Mingming's heart skipped a beat. She took 2 steps back and wrapped the beast's skin even tighter around herself. She said defensively, Gregory, we have been getting along well these few days, but I treat you as family. That matter, I can't do it. Gregory looked at Gu Mingming's guarded expression and his gaze dimmed. He lowered his head and said in disappointment, all right. Since you are not willing, then I will be like everyone else and keep calling you Gu Mingming. Wait a minute. Gu Mingming blinked her eyes. In a daze, she felt that she was imagining things again, so she asked, what do you want special? Name. Grace spat out the 2 words in low spirits. Gu Mingming held her forehead and relaxed. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. That's right, how could she forget? The males in the beast world liked to give their females nicknames that were similar to nicknames. Leah called her Ming Ming, Elvis called her Xiao Ming, Snake called her Tu Ming, and even that pervert Cole called her Agu. Having a nickname that belonged exclusively to a male was a great affirmation and satisfaction for a male. Oriton didn't have one because he didn't need it. He didn't need anything other than stewed meat. Gu Mingming rubbed herself against Gregory and proactively leaned on his shoulder. She smiled and said, I thought you were going to say something. Wasn't it just a name? Yes, of course. What do you want to call me? Is it really possible? Gregory's eyes lit up when he saw hope after falling to the bottom of the abyss. Gu Mingming nodded and said, sure, go ahead. I can accept anything as long as it's not too disgusting. Gregory pursed his lips and said hesitantly, Baby Meng? I don't want to hold the sword, I only want to hold you. Gregory held Gu Mingming's hand and kissed it. After kissing her, he realized that he had crossed the line. Then he looked at Gu Mingming's expression anxiously. Seeing that she was not angry, he felt much more at ease. He smiled faintly and said, forever. Then after I get the love of the sky, follow me down the mountain. If you stay on the mountain, how can you hold me forever? Gu Mingming made use of the pretext to make a fuss. She did not give up on persuading Gregory to leave with her. Instead, she wanted to make use of every possibility to kidnap Gregory. Chapter 1477. Gregory smiled but didn't reply. He just kissed the back of Gu Mingming's hand again. Even if it was just the back of her hand, it was a great comfort and happiness for Gregory to be allowed to kiss her openly. As long as I think of you in my heart, it will be for the rest of my life. With that, Gregory held Gu Mingming's hand with one hand and placed the other on her shoulder. I still have to make a trip to the stream. Firstly, it is to collect your food for today. Secondly, it is to introduce Lucas to Oriton. You know how protective Oriton is. I am afraid that Oriton will not give Lucas anything if he goes alone. Gu Mingming nodded. Then she grinned. Then hurry back. I will wait for you at home. 2 keywords. One home and the other wait. Gregory's chest tightened. He held Gu Mingming's hand and kissed it. Then, he reluctantly let go of her and spread his wings to fly off. Gu Mingming sat by the fire. She used the tree sap to poke at the fire to make it burn brighter. The smile on her face gradually faded. Her left hand clutched at her heart. Gu Mingming felt that something was making her uneasy. By right, everything should be progressing in a good direction. 2 days later, the wind stopped. Gregory brought her to retrieve the love of the sky. Elvis and Leah had already safely reached the foot of the mountain with Wabi. There didn't seem to be any problems. Miranda was pregnant with a child with the bloodline of the Beast King. Although she didn't know how to open that door, she would try her best to protect that child. Cole could not ascend the Moda Mountains. He would definitely not cause any trouble when retrieving the love of the sky. Saint Nazir had Barit, Zacharias had Peter. Although Sauter had Cole, who was like a ticking time bomb, Leah had already made the appropriate arrangements. Moreover, Hutta and Jianghu were not only protected by Sandy's family, but also by the entire Wolf clan and the 16 tribes. Even Cole would not be able to do anything to them in a short period of time. So what was she worried about? What had she missed out? Why did she feel so uneasy? Gu Mingming sat there in a daze. She was still in a daze when Gregory returned. Grace took the burnt resin from her hand and threw it into the fire. He hugged her gently and asked, "What's wrong?" Gu Mingming snapped out of her trance and quickly collected her thoughts. She smiled and said, "You're back." "Yes." Gregory tidied up the beast's skin on Gu Mingming and looked at her worriedly. "What were you thinking about just now? You didn't even realize I was back." Gu Mingming lowered her head and said, "Nothing, I just suddenly felt a little uneasy." Say, do you think there will be any problems with us obtaining the love of the sky? Gregory hugged her even tighter and placed his chin on the top of her head, telling her in a mellow voice, "Don't worry, I'm here." Gu Mingming nodded and chuckled. Chapter 1478. Gregory's voice resonated with his chest, shaking Gu Mingming's eardrums. Still worried? He's been absent-minded since yesterday. Gu Mingming nodded. Looking at the night sky, she said helplessly, "Yeah, the sky is already dark. An entire day has passed. I don't even know what I am worried about, but I just feel very uneasy." Gregory remained silent for a moment before asking hesitantly, "In the past, what did Elvis and Leah do when you felt uneasy?" Gu Mingming was taken aback. She shook her head and said, "I am not a sentimental person. This is the first time I have felt uneasy for no reason." Gregory sighed softly and said, "So, should I feel honored? The first time you felt uneasy for no reason, I was the one accompanying you." Gu Mingming was amused by Gregory's words. She said, "Why don't you tell me about your childhood? I can divert my attention and maybe everything will be fine." "Childhood?" Gregory countered. Gu Mingming nodded and said, "I have been here for the past few days. I feel that although the scenery on Moda Mountains is unique and majestic, but after looking at it for 10 years, the mountains are no longer mountains and the snow is no longer snow. How did you live your life in the past? I'm a little curious." Gregory thought about it seriously, then shook his head and said with a bitter smile, "I forgot." "Forgot?" Gu Mingming could not help but ask curiously. Gregory nodded and replied, "I have thought about it seriously. All my memories seem to have started from the first time I saw you in solder. Then how did I spend the first 10 long years of my life? Other than flying day and night, I don't remember anything else." Gregory tightened his grip on Gu Mingming's arm. He chuckled and said, "This feeling is quite good. My life started from the moment I met you. So you are my everything. And now that I am hugging you, my life is complete." Gu Mingming smiled and said, "I am so important and you are not leaving with me?" Gregory sighed and did not reply to Gu Mingming. He just pointed at the night sky and said, "Isn't the night sky beautiful from here?" Gu Mingming knew that he was intentionally changing the topic and did not expose him. She just nodded and said, "Yeah, very beautiful. In my world, the air pollution is very serious, especially in S-City where I live. There are almost no stars at night. It's weird, I've been in the beast world for more than 4 years but I've never had a chance to look at the stars properly. Since we've reached the top today, why don't you accompany me to see if there are any constellations that I can recognize?" "All right. I will accompany you." Gregory's gaze landed on Gu Mingming's face the entire time. How could the starlight compare to her brilliance? Gu Mingming gestured for a long time but could not even find the Big Dipper. She sighed and shook her head, saying, "When I was in school I could just open my mouth and talk about horoscopes and whatnot. But in the end I couldn't even recognize a single star." Gregory didn't mind. He just smiled and said, "What's so important about knowing each other? It's fine as long as it looks good." Gu Mingming nodded in agreement. "I like people like you who still help me out when I fail to act cool." Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "I can't recognize all the stars but I do know a few stories about them. Let me tell you a story as compensation." Chapter 1479. After thinking for a while, Gu Mingming pointed casually and said, "There was once a fairy who was curious about the things in the mortal world, so she secretly went down to the mortal world to travel. In the mortal world she fell in love with a man, a male. The fairy's mother was furious when she found out about it. She probably felt that her family's diamond-studded 24K pure gold cabbage was stolen by a wild boar of unknown origin. So she brought the fairy back to the heavenly court and forbade the two of them from meeting." Gregory nodded and said, "If our daughter falls in love with a wild boar, I won't be happy either." Gu Mingming, wild boar was just a metaphor, alright? Moreover, where did our daughter come from? She already said she wouldn't mate with him. Seeing that Gu Mingming's expression was not good, Gregory hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. "Of course, if you agree, I have no objections. But it's best not to be the first partner. Females from the bird's tribe should at least find their first partner within the tribe." The more Gregory spoke, the more he seemed to be serious. Gu Mingming was momentarily speechless and could not even be bothered to refute him. Seeing that Gu Mingming was not saying anything, Gregory thought that Gu Mingming had silently agreed to it. He was very happy, not because he had the right to speak on the issue of female partners, but because the fact that he could discuss their child with her was enough to make him happy. even though he knew better than Gu Mingming that there would be no child between them. Then, what happened after that? Gregory smiled and continued to ask. He wanted to hear more from Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming said, after the fairy's mother brought the fairy back to the heavenly court, the fairy cried non-stop and washed her face with tears every day. The cowherd on the ground also missed his wife very much, but he could not do anything about it. After that, a cow in their family became a demon and told the cowherd that he could go up to the heavens to meet the weaver maiden if he were to skin the cow and wear it. The cowherd did as he was told, then carried a pole and brought his children up to the heavens to meet the weaver maiden. After the queen mother of the west knew about it, she flew into a rage and used her hairpin to draw a line. Then a galaxy appeared between the cowherd and the weaver maiden. There it's the galaxy formed by the stars in the sky. It was boundless and could not be crossed. After that, a group of magpies could not stand it any longer. Wasn't this mother-in-law a little too hard to please? Although the male prostitute was not very rich, he at least had a house, land and a cow. Besides, they had already given birth to a child. What was the point of forcibly separating them? Therefore they spontaneously built the Magpie Bridge. Every year on the 7th day of the 7th month, they helped the cowherd and the weaver maid cross the Milky Way to meet for one day. After Gu Mingming finished, she chuckled and said, "Actually, I feel that this story is quite tragic, but I don't know why everyone says it's romantic." Then, on Chinese Valentine's Day every year, everyone would use this as a reason to celebrate. Couples all over the world would show off their love and show off their affection. I still can't understand why a couple can only see each other once a year. What's there to celebrate? Gregory smiled and said, "All right, that's the end of the story. Go to sleep. We still have to get Love of the Sky tomorrow." Gu Mingming thought about it and nodded. "I hope everything goes smoothly." Chapter 1480. The next morning, Gu Mingming did not need Gregory to wake her up as she had already woken up. The moment she opened her eyes, she met Gregory's gaze. She was in a daze for a moment before smiling. "Hi, good morning." "Baby Meng, good morning." Gregory replied with a smile before standing up to add 5 ice cups into the pot. He turned around to tidy up the beast's skin on Gu Mingming and said, "The wind is much weaker now. After you wash up and eat something, I will bring you to fly around the Moda Mountains and let you see the scenery." Gu Mingming nodded. Gu Mingming smiled and nodded. "I just mentioned it casually that day. You still remember it?" Gregory smiled faintly and nodded. "I remember what I promised you." Gu Mingming punched Gregory's chest and smiled mischievously. "Oh, you're such a warm guy." Gregory covered her little fist and pressed it against his heart. He said softly, "Only you will be the only one who will warm up." Because she was going to get the love of the sky today, Gu Mingming was a little excited. She did not want to eat and wanted to set off immediately. However, Gregory did not agree and said that she had to eat first or else he would not bring her out. Her heart was full of resentment. She pestered Grace with soft and hard tactics, but when she was pestering him, Grace forced her to eat a whole rabbit bite by bite. Only then was he done. "Come up." Gregory stood at the entrance of the cave with his back facing Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming climbed onto Gregory's back without saying a word. It was easy to form habits. She still remembered how uncomfortable she was when she first got on Gregory's back and how awkward she was. Now she felt more at ease. "This is my first time flying in a half-orc form. I don't know if I can control it well, so hold on tight. If I transform into my beast form midway, don't hesitate and grab onto my feathers tightly. Do you understand?" Gregory reminded her. Gu Mingming nodded in agreement. Gregory did not seem assured and reminded her again. "Don't be afraid even if I can't catch you. I will definitely catch you." "I know." Gu Mingming smiled sweetly and hung onto Gregory's back. She wrapped her arms around his neck and wrapped her legs around his waist. Her little head rested on his shoulder just like a mischievous little monkey. Gregory transformed his hands into wings and flapped them twice. Then, with a push of his feet, he soared into the sky. The wind howled on both sides. Gregory did not seem to be used to flying in his half-beast form, but his bird-like instincts allowed him to find a balance very quickly. Not long after, he was flying steadily and steadily. Gu Mingming was extremely surprised. She had sat on a plane before but not outside it. Moreover, the plane would not be controlled by her like Gregory. She could fly anywhere she wanted. Wah! The scenery in front of her retreated rapidly. Although the wind had stopped, the cold air was still there. It did not feel cold when it blew on Gu Mingming's face, just refreshing. Gregory led Gu Mingming in circles above the Moda Mountains. The map that they had been flying on for 10 years seemed especially different today. The sun was shining brightly, the wind was warm, and the beauty was on his back. What more could he ask for? If it could always be like this, how good would it be? It's about time, let's go get love of the sky. Gregory tilted his head and said to Gu Mingming. In the past, Gregory had always flown with her in his beast form. Her entire body would be covered by his feathers and her vision would be obstructed. This was the first time she had flown so freely and it felt rather exciting. It was a pity to stop like this, but getting love of the sky was a serious matter and could not be delayed. So Gu Mingming tilted her head and smiled. Alright then, let's get love of the sky first. After we get it, if there's still no wind, bring me to fly another 2 rounds, alright? Aside from the topic, previously she had stayed up too long to save up her chapters. Now her left eye was bloodshot and frighteningly red. But she had already taken out all her saved chapters during the explosive update. Now she could not rest even if she wanted to, she could not possibly stop updating. Beauty, the new month had just begun and she had already received 30 monthly tickets. Susu was overwhelmed by the favor. Seeing that all of you like me so much, no matter how hard it was all worth it. There were no more explosive updates for the time being. Susu had to rest her eyes to ensure that the updates were stable. The moment it touched the ground, it froze into a thin layer of sparkling ice crystals. Gu Mingming leaned on Gregory's shoulder and watched as the water droplets flew out like fireworks. Like a curious child, she smiled happily and said, "You're amazing, brother." Gregory smiled indulgently and helplessly and said, "Love of the sky is over there, go and take it." Gu Mingming crawled out from behind Gregory and stretched her body towards the depression. Indeed, she saw a pair of wings that looked like transparent ice sculptures lying flat on the ground. The size was huge and it felt like it was 2 sizes bigger than Gregory's wings. Chapter 1482. Gu Mingming squatted down and reached out to touch that wing. It was very strange. She could clearly see it but she could not touch it. There was a sense of déjà vu but it felt like air. Gu Mingming turned back to look at Gregory in confusion. Gregory said, "Lie down and use your back to touch the wing." Gu Mingming did as she was told. Then she laid on the ground with her back facing the sky. Then a piercing pain pierced through her heart. Bah! Gu Mingming felt something piercing through her shoulder blade. In that instant she was in so much pain that her entire body convulsed and screamed. "Baby Ming." Gregory's eyes turned red from Gu Mingming's heart-wrenching scream. He wanted to go forward to pull Gu Mingming up but he could not get close to her at all. With Gu Mingming as the eye of the wind, a huge ring of wind rapidly expanded outwards, sweeping up everything in this world as it spiraled upwards. A visible tornado was formed just like that. Gregory withstood the sharp wind and approached Gu Mingming with difficulty step by step. Even when the remnant ice of the tornado cut through his skin like countless blades, he did not take a step back and continued to approach Gu Mingming with determination. His baby Ming was screaming in the eye of the wind. He had to go over and protect her. He had promised her that he would protect her no matter what, so he had to go over. The sharp shards of ice attacked him at lightning speed. He barely avoided the fatal shard of ice that was aimed at his neck but could not avoid the shard of ice that was aimed at his eye. The wind was too strong and the ice was too sharp. Before he could even feel the pain, blood had already flowed down from the corner of his eye. His heart was completely in the eye of the wind as Gu Mingming screamed. Gregory did not even realize that one of his eyes was already blind. The ring of wind continued to expand and the wind grew stronger. Even Gregory had never experienced such a level of wind in the past 10 years. If not for the fact that the eye of the wind was Gu Mingming, he would have been blown away. Every step was difficult but he did not take a step back. When Gregory's fingertips finally touched Gu Mingming, his heart that was in his throat finally calmed down. Clenching his teeth, he took a step forward and hugged Gu Mingming in his arms. She must be in so much pain that she could not even make a sound after screaming. Her eyes were tightly shut and her forehead was covered in sweat. The veins on her temples were clearly visible. She clenched her fists tightly and blood dripped from her palms. It was obvious that her nails were embedded into her flesh. "Baby Meng, baby Meng." Gregory anxiously called her name and held her tightly in his arms. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Gregory opened his arms and transformed them into wings, wrapping Gu Mingming tightly in his arms. Then he walked out of the storm one step at a time. When they arrived at the edge of the cave that Gu Mingming wanted to see, Gregory's wings had already been sliced into pieces by the ice shards. His flesh was badly mutilated and it was a horrible sight to behold. He placed Gu Mingming, who had fainted from the pain, on the ground and knelt in front of a statue that was sealed in ice. He prayed sincerely. Please transfer all the pain that Gu Mingming had suffered to me. I am willing to suffer double the pain in exchange for her safety. The howling wind gradually calmed down. Gregory endured the injuries all over his body and tied Gu Mingming tightly to his back with the beast's skin. He ignored the countless wounds on his wings that were so deep that the bones could be seen and spread his wings forcefully to fly. Chapter 1483. When Gu Mingming woke up, Elvis was sprinting with her in his arms. Elvis rarely sprinted like this. In the past, no matter how they rushed, Elvis would always be able to do it with ease. He had never been in such a pathetic state. He did not look like he was rushing, he looked like he was running away. Leah followed closely behind Elvis. Both of them were extremely focused on what was in front of them. Their feet did not stop for even a moment. Only a series of light footprints were left on the loose snow, showing how fast they were running. It was as if they were flying across the snow. Gu Mingming was in a daze for a moment. She ignored the oncoming cold wind and struggled to stand up. She surveyed her surroundings and confirmed that she was still within the boundaries of the Mota Mountains. Elvis and Leah were still around, but Gregory and Wabiai were nowhere to be seen. Where are they? Gu Mingming asked with a frown. Her words caused Elvis and Leah to stop in their tracks and sink into the snow. The snow was up to their chest, but the two of them did not seem to feel it. They looked at Gu Mingming with a deep gaze. Gu Mingming could clearly see Elvis's jaw muscles bulging up and down, as if he was gritting his teeth and deliberating over something. Something happened, right? Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes. I could not have jumped down by myself, so Gregory must have handed me over to you. But he was not with you. Under normal circumstances, even if he did not request it, you and Leah would not carry me and run in the snow instead of letting Gregory carry me on a more comfortable path. So, something happened to Gregory? After Gu Mingming said that, her gaze swept across Elvis and Lee's faces. They were silent because they had promised not to lie to her. So, Gu Mingming guessed correctly. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mingming continued. What about Wabiai? Something happened to him too, right? Judging from the way the two of you ran just now, there must be danger behind us. Under such circumstances, as long as Wabiai was not dead, he would not leave me behind. So now he is either dead or in a situation worse than death. Otherwise, even if he was frozen stiff, the two of you would not leave him behind. After all, if something happened to little shit, I would definitely be upset. And the two of you would not do anything that would upset me unless it was absolutely necessary. Tell me what happened to them. Gu Mingming stared into their eyes and asked. Mingming, we only have half a day's time to run out. After half a day the wind will rise again. That kind of cold is not something that we can endure. So within half a day we have to leave the Mota mountain range. I will explain to you after we get out, alright? Leah tried to persuade Gu Mingming, but she shook her head and said, both of you leave first. Xiaoming, stop fooling around. Elvis said coldly. Gu Mingming hugged Elvis tightly and said, I don't know what happened to Gregory, but it must be because of me. Since he's under my name now, I can't leave him to face danger alone. As for little shit, I promised before I came in that as long as I still have a breath left in me, I will bring him out the same way I brought him in. Gregory is at the highest peak of the Mota Mountains. You can't even reach him. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming tightly and said, Xiaoming, listen to me. Let's go first. Gu Mingming shook her head and smiled. You guys can't go up, but I can. Chapter 1484. Gu Mingming circled one round before saying, You and Leah leave Mota Mountains first, I will go back to look for Gregory and little shit. Believe me, I know my life is related to yours, so I will definitely not let myself be in danger. Once I realize that the situation is out of control, I will immediately leave. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances and gritted their teeth, finally compromising, We will accompany you. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, You said it yourself, Gregory is at the peak of Mota Mountains, the two of you can't even go up. Once the wind blows, the two of you will not be able to unleash your fighting abilities and not be able to help me, I will have to take care of the two of you instead. Listen to me, both of you wait outside first, don't distract me. With that, Gu Mingming turned and flew towards the highest peak of Mota Mountains. That place was easy to recognize, it was the tallest of all the mountains, shaped like a snake. She did not know if it was because Gregory had taught her how to fly after bringing her a few rounds today. Although her first flight was strenuous, it was not difficult. She did not have a good grasp of balance, but at least she did not fall off. Flying was like an instinct, and this instinct came with the wings. It had nothing to do with her. Elvis and the rest did not know how long they had been running, but Gu Mingming only flew for about 20 minutes before returning to the peak of Moda Mountains. And when she saw Gregory, she was completely stunned. Tears could not help but fall down her face. Her heart was clenched so tightly that it hurt. That was the kind of heartache that caused tears to fall one by one before she could even sniffle. Gregory? It was a simple word, but it made the person who had his back to her stiffen. He did not turn back. He just said with difficulty, "We agreed that you would leave after taking the love of the sky, and you are not allowed to turn back. Why did you come back? You are my male, how can I abandon you and leave alone?" Gu Mingming replied Gregory with a thick sobbing tone. She walked step by step towards the back view that was covered in wounds. There were so many wounds on his body, so many that she could not even count them clearly. His entire body was bleeding, as if he was not afraid that he would not stop bleeding until his blood ran dry. And the most shocking thing was the 2 hideous wounds on his shoulder blades. His wings were gone. The wings, which were supposed to be as strong and powerful as the heavenly ambassador, were now only left with 2 badly mangled wounds. She did not dare to ask. She did not dare to ask where his wings had gone. She could only hold back her tears and said, "Gregory, I'm back for you. Come with me, okay? Baby Meng, don't come over." Gregory did not turn his head at all, only facing his back to her. The pride of a male allowed him to endure all the pain without shedding a single tear, but her appearance easily destroyed his psychological defense. All his indestructibility was shattered into dust when she said, "I'm back to pick you up." You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.